I was so much looking forward to these visits. You know, the movie that had just come out right before we started our recruiting trips, He Got Game, Jesus Shuttlesworth. And all I remember is a particular scene when he walked into that dorm room. And I said, oh, that's what happens on these visits.
That's the only part of the movie I ever saw.
Exactly.
Over and over and over.
Yeah. That's the same. So I went in, you know, with that kind of energy. And I guess I'll leave the details for another day. It was a fun time. But right at that time, they also had the recruiting sanctions play in because everybody started getting in trouble, flying players out on jets and all kind of stuff. So Duke followed all the rules for anybody listening.
Trust me, they followed all the rules.
Yeah.
Let's go!
What up, everybody? I'm Mike Tawili Brown.
I'm Ryan Fowler.
And this is Big D Energy. Big D Energy is a podcast that is produced in partnership with the NFL Alumni Association. And we are your co-hosts, two former NFL linebackers. But more than that, you know, Ryan and I are both former Duke graduates and, as you may have guessed, former Duke football players. And so this show actually is dedicated and for our beloved Duke University family, the alumni, the current students, and really all the Duke fans, supporters, and even you haters out there. We covered today's biggest topics surrounding Duke football, college athletics, and really this whole post-pandemic world we live in. And while we're on the topic, you know, we chose the Big D Energy name because the official definition, according to Urban Dictionary, of course, is an aura of understated yet unshakable confidence. And what we realize is that all Duke students, but especially the student athletes, possess this Big D energy. And it's really because we possess the traits and the qualities necessary really to dominate the heavy demands of performing on and off the field, often leading to that Big D energy. So with that, Ryan, why don't you tell our beautiful viewers what they can expect from the Big D Energy podcast?
All right, Mike, here's the play. This is going to have 4 quarters, just like a football game would, okay? Our first quarter, we're going to have a special guest on today, but we're always going to introduce a recent Duke sporting event, all right? And we're going to talk about the ins and outs of the game. We'll talk about it at high level. We'll talk about it from the ground level. And we're going to bring in a really great correspondent that will help us out with this from time to time. Second quarter, Mike and I are going to be alone. We're going to do one of a few segments. Mike has actually come up with some really great segments. And so, for example, one might be prove me wrong. All right. So I say something, Mike says something, and then we go into an argument about it. And trust me when I tell you, when 2 linebackers get to fighting about anything, it's going to be epic for sure. Eventually, we will get to the third quarter, which is going to be hot topics. Fourth quarter, after the third quarter, we're gonna actually keep our guests on for the next quarter. So I failed to mention, in the third quarter, we bring the guests in and they become a part of our conversation of the hot topics. What we're gonna see there is that this is a really great way to break people in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited about our guests. We're gonna have, you know, plenty of former players, Duke athletes, right, across football, basketball, you name it. But the other thing I'm excited about is we're gonna feature special guests from across the Duke family and the community, right? Folks that work at Duke that keep our institution in the top ranks, right? Future Duke players, right? Recruits, you know, that's something new that we'll have some of those guys and gals on. We're going to have also, you know, the famous, if you will, a Duke alum. I know we got a handful all across, you know, various industries. So while we will be focusing on some sports and Duke football, obviously we're football players. But as you know, Duke student athletes go far beyond just the sport that they dominate. And so we're going to be able to cover a lot of ground here. So let's get into this first quarter. Duke sports recap.
Touchdown, Duke!
Let's get into some Duke sports. Obviously, we've got to start with the football season and this crazy turnaround season that Mike Elko has orchestrated thus far. And
absolutely. Look, I've been watching, you know, obviously as former players, but I got a confession, right? I haven't been watching as closely as I want. I've definitely been watching, but I don't know all the stats.
Don't you worry.
We've been
listen,
kicking
Mike,
ass.
important.
Yeah.
Do not fret. We got a great guest on. He's going to fill in all the blanks for us. I'm telling you, this guy used to do my homework when we were in school. No, he didn't. All right. So I've been talking him up already, and now we're going to introduce him. So I want you to welcome to the show one of my best friends, maybe the guy who knows more about Duke football than even the crazy guys that come to every Duke football game. I wonder if they still come. We'll find out soon. Anyway, my good friend, former teammate, ex-Dookie, forever Dookie, right? Brian Green.
Yeah. What's up, dudes? It's nice to see you both. I'm so stoked y'all are doing this, man. I couldn't think of two better guys to be putting together a podcast, and I'll try to bring the Big Duke football energy whenever you want to have me on. I kind of obsess over this stuff, especially this year. I mean, just an outstanding, unbelievable kind of turn of events here, from last in the ACC, not winning a game last year to winning 5 ACC contests this year and going 8-4.
Yeah. And that said, right? This is the Duke Sports Recap, right? We got to jump into it. I know you got things to do, BG. We appreciate you being here. So let's go ahead and jump in. Right? Maybe we could start with what the hell, happened this season, the good, the bad, the ugly. I know you got a few things to share with us. So how about we jump in?
I'll start with the game on Saturday, right? With Wake. I mean, what a unbelievable game. A huge win on senior day, right? So letting those seniors finish. Seniors who the 3 years prior didn't have a record over 500, who'd never gone to a bowl game. Watching them, put it on Wake, win 8 games. I mean, I was just so thrilled for those guys, for the coaching staff. But when we all talked last week, because we huddled and just kind of said, hey, what happened against Pitt, which was the most frustrating game, in my opinion, of the entire season, because it was the game where we beat ourselves. We had a couple plays, from individual players that really cost us 14 points. And then the strategy to me on offense was just pretty poor.
Talk about that again, Brian. Talk about the running and passing.
Yeah, we threw on first down like 80+% of the time against Pitt, and we just continued to do that throughout the entire game, and then just totally abandoned the run in the middle of the third quarter after we had a fumble from one of our running backs, and it just became very predictable. Now, we still had success, and we lost the game by 2 points, but it's Duke's strength on offense, based on my eye, is run first, set up the run. That makes the pass so much easier for Riley off the zone read, play action fakes, rollouts, et cetera, et cetera. We came out against Wake. First down, first play of the game. We ran the ball, 9-yard gain. Second play of the game, shotgun, quick toss I had never seen all season, 7-yard gain. Now,
by the way, Mike, the only reason I knew that is because he texted me every single play what it was. Thank God, because my TV wasn't working, and he was giving me a play-by-play that was probably more thorough than seeing it on TV, I would imagine.
Like I was about 30 minutes behind, so I cut my phone off, all notifications, and I started on the game from the beginning, so I wouldn't have any spoilers.
Yeah, I had my real-time reporter on hand.
There you go.
You are a smart man, Mike. Don't let the text message bite you. But no, so we ran first through second, and that set it all up. Riley was extremely efficient the rest of the game. I mean, the guy was just throwing dimes. I don't know if y'all looked at this dude a lot this year, but he's a redshirt sophomore. He's 6'4", 212. He can add to his frame. He's a first-round draft pick, in my opinion, in 23 or 24 when he decides to come out. He's that good. He started the game 11 for 11, guys. And that's not the first time he's done that this year. He's done that in like 2 or 3 other games that I've watched where it's just completion. And these aren't like 5-yard dinks. These are
Brian, is he as good as Daniel Jones?
Well, I'll get to that later.
Okay.
I have something for you. But so 500 yards of total offense, 391 through the air for Riley, 4 touchdowns, 1 INT on a bad throw he threw off his back foot. Deep ball receiver had the guy beat. Get this stat. We had 2 receivers. Jalen Calhoun had an 11, 174 1 line, and Samir Higgins had an 8, 139 2 line. We haven't had receivers put lines like that up since Jamison Crowder and Connor Vernon. Wow. Daniel Jones, yeah, I mean, we haven't had it, like, at all. That stat blew my mind. I was like, that's insane.
No, it's nuts. It's nuts. And when I think about the games and the big plays, right? Like that's what it's all about. And I remember seeing that 11 for 11, right? Watching the receivers get off and make catches in traffic, right? The old adage of mossing somebody. Yeah. Seeing a couple of those across the season. And I love what I know Elko talks a lot about, physicality. right? Going after it, and it just shows up, man. It shows up, and my thing is the counter punches, right? We've been punched in the mouth a few times this season, and around the days when we played, the majority of the team might be laying down, but to see those guys come back and hit them with a two-piece every time has been.
And on Saturday, honestly, it went beyond that. I think on Saturday they finally hammered a nail in the coffin.
Absolutely. And you talk about the turnover. I mean, the commentators are talking about the turnover ratio. I mean, my goodness, from last in the country to leading the ACC and maybe second in the country.
Second in the country, behind only University of Southern California, who's number 4 in the country and likely to play in the college football championship.
Wow.
What is it? What is our plus minus?
14 plus.
Last year, -7.
Actually, no, we finished plus 15. We had an interception late in the game.
Oh, we did to end the game. Yeah.
But so that on that front, Mike, the defense was, in my opinion, we gave up 31 points. Sam Hartman's he tied Taj Boyd for the all-time lead in touchdowns. The guy's outstanding. He's a prolific quarterback. You're not going to shut them down ever, right? That slow motion zone read scheme.
Schrodinger's cat, Brian. That's the name of that play.
Dude, I was watching that. I'm like, we got to get. So what we did early was we had 3 down linemen and 4 down linemen. That was all we were coming with.
Let's describe that play real quick because I don't. Without some description. So we're talking about basically it's an RPO.
Shotgun zone read where the running back he will literally run rise. That's right. He'll take his offhand and ride the back of the running back.
Yep.
He holds it so long, then he rips it out. And if you don't have pressure coming, I mean, he's picking his nose and throwing the football. So we finally started we were doing 3-4 down linemen at the beginning, then we started to blitz some, and the blitzes were getting home. Dwayne Carter had some great sacks. Great player. We're going to miss him. And then, we bring some safeties here and there. And so we started hitting him. That led to some interceptions. So the defense to me played an outstanding game. And we made 2 field goals, guys. Our field goal kicking has been bad all season. It's been bad since we lost Ross Martin. And the field goal kicker hit 2 field goals in the game. So most complete game for me, no question, on all 3 phases of the football.
And it's coming at the right time. That's when you want to peak, right?
That's how you want to end the regular season, right? And obviously we got some bowl, we're going bowling this year. I think first time since 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Daniel's last year when we won the Independence Bowl, I believe.
That's awesome.
Hey, well, BG, man, I'm sorry I gotta cut you off, homie. The first quarter is about to come to a wrap.
No, not BG.
I know. But the good news and great news for our audience is that BGZ.
Hey, Mike, we got a little surprise for you before we wrap the segment.
Oh yeah. Let's get that. We'll extend the clock. Timeout. Let's go.
We got to right now. Look, it's TV timeout. Here we go.
Okay, so as we all know, Riley was making crazy plays all game, but I looked back at his season statistically. So he's a redshirt sophomore. Okay. Who's starting?
We're talking about Riley.
Who's starting for the first year. He completed 63.8% of his passes this year. Wow. Daniel Jones in his redshirt junior season, his last one at Duke, which was his 3rd full season starting, completed 60.5% of his passes. Okay. There you go. Now, Riley threw for 20 touchdowns and ran for 11. That's 31 total touchdowns this season. Daniel in his last season at Duke, 22 touchdowns through the air, 3 on the ground. That's 6 more touchdowns Riley accumulated this year than Daniel did his last year. That's 42 points, guys. That wins a lot of games.
Wow.
8 more toting that thing on the ground, too. That's crazy.
That's right.
We think of Daniel as a runner. I mean, as a capable runner, but not a run first guy.
Right. He's a straight ahead fast guy. Riley can juke, right? And is straight ahead fast. Yeah. Last one, and it's makes me the most excited about both his time at Duke and then his potential in the NFL. He threw 6 interceptions this year, guys. Daniel threw 9 his last season. So, and look, you'd say, well, how many attempts? Riley had 363 attempts this year. Daniel had 392. So yeah, maybe a full game more of throws. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He had a better season this year in his redshirt sophomore year than Daniel did with a better roster, by the way. Because we had gone to three straight bowl games when Daniel was a junior. Right, we were still recruiting pretty well. Like we haven't gone to a bowl game in 3 years. So this dude, guys, get excited. I'm telling you that if he stays healthy, this is another top 10 pick.
Can we keep him for 2 years?
Well, and not if he goes off again next year. But I showed you our schedule next year. Ooh.
Well, here's what we can do. All of our viewers out there, and I know we got some folks with some deep pockets and some big brands. but NIL is a thing. And, that's how we keep our top guys around in the program. And this is Duke, right? It's 4 years plus a 40-year commitment and everything that comes with that. And so with those kind of numbers, thank you for that breakdown, BG. I know that we got some folks out there on the corporate sponsor and brand side that I'm sure could be helpful in keeping Riley around in Durham for.
Isn't it so great that we can just talk out loud about that right now?
Oh, it's nice. They deserve it. We just
yeah, they do. I mean,
yeah,
that's all right. We didn't get.
I got one more, and then I'm going to leave you guys.
Come on,
get it.
Duke lost 3 ACC games, guys. Do you know by how many total points?
Can I guess?
Yes.
All right, hold on. I'm going to go with 15.
8.
Whoa.
Guys. We were 8 points away from being 11-1 and undefeated in the ACC. 8 points. Now, we were 16 points away from being undefeated.
Wow.
When you think about and no one on ESPN is talking about Duke football, right? Like, where is it? That's like, guys, that is a complete turnaround. That is unbelievable. This might be the best. This is the most exciting season I've watched for Duke football since 2013 when we played in the ACC championship game and won the ACC Coastal. Unbelievable job.
Mike, we're going to have to cut him off. He will go forever. Because
I just want to say shout out to B Jeezy with all the gems. Shout out to Coach Elko having that big D energy out there on the sideline, leading our guys and making the alumni proud. BG, we got to go, man. It's time.
Brian, that was a telling stat. Thank you for that.
Love you guys. It was great to see you.
Good buddy.
Love you, man. Talk to you later. All right, folks, let's get into quarter number 2.
This was Locker Room Talk.
Time for locker room talk. You know, Mike, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, why is that? You got some good ones?
I got so many stories. And honestly, I can turn the most bland fact information into a story. Just give me the mic and let me run.
Yeah, I got a bunch, man. And honestly, they've never left the confines of the actual locker room. And I can't lie. I'm a little nervous, but
Are you? Yeah. Well, look, you're in a safe place with me, right? Circle of trust.
Circle of trust for sure.
Oh, and I don't know how that works.
This is BDE, so fuck it. Let's get into it, man.
Let's do it. Okay. So for this first one, right, I think we got to kind of warm up a little bit, use it as an opportunity to introduce ourselves a little bit more to the crowd, to the audience, right?
Agreed.
And so I don't want to scare away people too much. So I think today we talk about how we ended up at Duke in the first place, right?
Yeah. That's great. As
far as I know, these are somewhat similar stories. So
I'm with it. You go first.
Start? I'll start. Okay, here I go. So unlike a lot of college football players, I was told from a very early age, college football is not in your future. My dad was very, very practical, very rational, logical to a fault, to the extent that he was a pessimist, totally, right? But I think part of it was he didn't want me to get my hopes up, but he wanted me to keep first things first, right? So everything was about grades. So when I was growing up, he told me the only people that get football scholarships are really great players on really great teams that get really lucky and get found by a team. And I think maybe that's the way things worked when he was in school or something. So I believe that. So I never really had an eye on making it, although quietly I was always planning to make it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to say it out loud because I don't want to get ridiculed, especially by my dad. But he used to tell me, you're too small, you're too slow. And it's funny thinking about that now because obviously I'm not. But in some ways that was a good thing. So, coming up through school, it was always, I got kicked off of my, third grade. In third grade, I was playing, it was my first year of tackle football. My dad took me off the team because I got 3 A's and 3 B's. And I fought, I scratched tooth and nail. I was screaming, crying. He said, I'll give you one chance to get it up. Go talk to your teachers. And if they'll bring your grades up or give you some makeup work or whatever, then I'll let you back out. He was just playing with me the whole time,
Yeah.
Because he wanted me to think always that grades first, which by the way, that's the truth. That's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
So anyway, as I go through high school, there's no recruiting. There was nobody at my school in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that was even offered a D1 scholarship. So that wasn't really something that I was expecting.
Where you coming out of? Tell the folks.
I'm from Florida, Seminole, Florida. There's 2 Seminole Floridas, not to be confused with the one in I think it's in like
Dallas?
Orlando. This one's near St. Petersburg.
Gotcha.
And we weren't good. My senior year was the first year we made it to the playoffs in 27 years. So there wasn't a lot of tradition coming out of there or anything like that.
That makes sense.
So anyway, when I started getting recruited by Duke, and then that was, Duke was actually one of the first ones, certainly Division I, but it was the academies, it was the Ivy Leagues, it was Duke. Duke was the only team that offered me that was actually in a real conference. No offense. Right. And so really that made the decision pretty easy. Like, okay, it's ACC. Everybody's telling me this is a great school. I really didn't know anything about it. I just seen them play Florida State before, So we went to I came on my official visit with my parents, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually what locked it up for me. I was standing out in front of the chapel, the Duke Chapel. And, these tours that you go on with your parents when you come for a visit are just like, it was, I don't know, it was like 92 degrees or something, dry, and the sun was out and beating on me. And I just, and we're standing in front of the chapel, and I looked up, one of those exacerbated, like I was just, and I looked up like this, and about the time I got the back of my head parallel to the ground, I felt splat. And I went, and what? I could feel the bird shit run down.
No way. Are you serious?
Hold on. So my mother, my mom's from Iran, right? She's Persian. Either they have different sort of like superstitions, right? Or I just fell for it, one or the other. But she said, oh my God, Omid. You know what this means? She calls me Omid. That's my middle name. Omid, do you know what this means? I said, yeah, bird shit on my head. And she goes, no, that's good luck. You have to come here. And I go,
wow.
Really? She goes, Omid, I'm not kidding. You must come here. And I was like, all right, well, then can we go? Can we go now? And she's like, are you going to come? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to come. And she goes, yeah, okay, Ronnie, let's go. She tells my dad, let's go. That's how I ended up at Duke.
Oh, man, I thought that was going to go a different direction.
Where'd you think it was going?
I mean, I would think getting shit on probably would be like, all right, maybe this isn't a good idea. And
that was exactly my first thought.
And you had to convince them that it was, but it seems like it was the opposite. Damn.
I think my mom has she's got a way of using her foreignness to confuse me.
Yeah.
If any of our audience is Persian, can you help confirm or deny that this is a true superstition in Iran or
hit the comments, let us know. Wow.
Because that doesn't seem right.
I thought you were going to say you like looked up at the chapel and like had this divine moment of clarity. And it did not.
You never know. They say God works in mysterious ways.
Mysterious ways, indeed. Wow.
Anybody can be a messenger, I suppose.
Well, I love that, man. You actually reminded me of a few things. If I could jump into mine, if you.
Yeah, I was about to say, what about you? How'd you get here?
No shit hit my face in my recruitment into Duke, but I will say you brought up some interesting things in your story. So my mom also foreign, half Samoan, half Black, and my mom very early on, like always academics over athletics, right? And one story that always sticks out to me. I've been playing football. I'm here in Texas, Houston, in the SWAT, and football is kind of what we're living and breathing down here. And, different from yours, kind of, where I grew up and the folks that I was around, that was kind of one of the primary ways you could get out, if you will, through, football or music, things like that. And so, I was going after it. I was playing Little League and it was relatively, good compared to everybody else. And, it was on the all-star teams, things like that. But I'll never forget third grade, I came home with, I think a C, right? And my mom had a grading scale of her own, A, B, or an F, right? If you have anything less than a B, you might as well have an F.
Win or lose, yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be the same outcome. So came home the day of the championship game, and she stuck to her gun. She said, you're not playing, you're not going. I begged and pleaded. She bent a little bit, said, okay, I'll take you to the game. Thought that was a great idea. So here we are in the parking lot of the game. I'm watching from afar. We never told anybody. This was before cell phones, I think. And so they didn't know where I was. Championship game. I'm watching from afar in the parking lot with a pizza that we ordered. And I'm just bawling my eyes out watching us lose.
Hold on, how old are you?
Game. I was in third grade. I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And I'm just bawling my eyes out watching our team lose. I was running back and middle linebacker, so it was a pretty significant role on the team. And I remember that day, that was the time I told myself, that's the last time I will ever let academics or grades stop me from doing what I love, which at that very time was playing ball. And so going into, middle school, high school, I was always very academically, on point. And so for me, it was kind of this duality, right? Of like, all right, I'm doing my thing on the field, but I'm also just as focused off the field. And it's funny how the story ended up, right, where I ended up at Duke. But prior to that, I was pretty good on at the game, right? And our team was brand new. The school was brand new, right? So unproven, but we had a lot of talent. In fact, when I signed my senior year, we had
what school was that?
A-Leaf Taylor in Houston, Texas. And on my team, right, we had Mike and Martellus Bennett, the Bennett brothers.
Oh, really?
Played in the NFL. You might remember Martellus.
Yeah, Martellus came there the year after I left to Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. So he played tight end, and his brother Mike played D-end, and I was middle linebacker. We put several guys in D1, and a few of us ended up in the league. And so we had the talent, right? But at the time, I was super undersized. I was like 5'9", maybe 5'10". And I made it clear that I wanted to stay in the Big 12. I was a big time UT, OU, the Red River Shootout. Like this is the type of stuff I'm watching. I'm watching Ricky Williams get active, right? And so, but the difference was they weren't as actively involved and interested in me. I was getting tons of letters. I remember it was like a big thing of pride when you get to the field house, you got letters and your coaches are handing them out, but never offer letters. It was always like, hey, great game, we're interested, yada, yada, yada. Make a long story short, I actually only had a handful of offers, right? And the primary one was from Louisiana Tech. I got to shout them out because they made it very clear I was their number one guy. But Duke, on the other hand, was kind of, I'm not going to say stringing me along, but keeping their options open, right? And they knew that statistically I was all over the place. I was a kind of touchdown club, all city, all those things, but relatively short. So that said, I'm like, really, Duke was on my radar, but I didn't know much about it. I just knew that it was like an academic powerhouse. I didn't know that much. And so through the process, I was talking to them, and it literally, a lot of people don't know this, it came down literally to the last day. Signing day was February 2nd. I received my offer from Duke on February 1st.
Does that make you nervous?
It did. In fact, I had already committed. I verbally committed to Louisiana Tech. And I realized, I guess you could get to the league from any school. But by that time, I had really loved the idea of going to Duke, playing in the ACC. I was already academically strong. I was a 4.0 in high school, president of the engineering club. And so I just felt like that.
Engineering club.
Trying to do my thing. I was also like, doing hood rat things with my hood rat friends. So it was really like this triple life I was living, but that's for another locker room talk. But they finally came through and they told me, they said, look, it's down to you and this other guy in Georgia, and he's deciding between Duke and Georgia Tech.
You remember his name?
I don't, but I do know that I intercepted a pass to him in the game when we played Georgia Tech a couple of years later.
Oh, really?
So he chose Georgia Tech. They called me. Coach said, you want to be a Blue Devil? And I said, hell yeah. And they overnighted my paperwork. And I went into signing day with that big D energy, real proud with the Duke hats. They sent me some Duke hats. And so we got some great pictures. But I mean, it was literally the 11th hour when the Duke offer came through. And to be literally the last person kind of offered and signed, and then fast forward, having the type of freshman year I had, it was kind of a fairy tale, if you will. But yeah, got that big D energy at the right time, and here we are, man. So
we're both former Cinderellas.
Yeah, man. So look, I know we got some amazing things ahead. I think it was a great first segment of locker room talk. Like you said, keeping it safe, keeping it clean. We'll have some more interesting stuff coming up. But
you won't be so lucky next time.
I didn't know that about your recruiting visit. Mine wasn't as eventful. I'll be honest, I had more fun at Oklahoma State, the number 3 party school in the country at the time.
Yeah. You know how many other visits I went on?
How many?
0.
Oh, really?
I just wanted it to be over with. You know what I mean? And once my mom was like, hey, bird shit on your head, you should go here. I was like, cool, let's wrap this up.
Well, here's some locker room talk for you before we end. I was so much looking forward to these visits. The movie that had just come out right before we started our recruiting trips, He Got Game, Jesus Shuttlesworth. And all I remember is a particular scene when he walked into that dorm room And I said, oh, that's what happens on these visits.
That's the only part of the movie I ever saw.
Exactly.
Over and over and over.
Yeah. That's the same. So I went in, with that kind of energy, and I guess I'll leave the details for another day. But it was a fun time. But right at that time, they also had the recruiting sanctions play in because everybody started getting in trouble, flying players out on jets and all kind of stuff. So Duke followed all the rules for anybody listening.
Trust me, they followed all the rules.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I think we need to get into these hot topics. The third quarter is upon us. Great story,
Let's do
bro.
that.
They say. Here you go. Hot topics.
So hot, you gotta listen naked.
Well, look who we have here. It's a fresh new face. Mr. Reggie Love. I'm not even going to take the time to introduce you right now. We're going to jump right into hot topics. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right.
Real quick, just to set the stage for our audience, we're going to pop through hot topics that folks are talking about right now on Twitter and the world, wherever, water cooler. We're going to get some hot takes from our man, Reggie Love, today. So let's get it. What's the first topic up? Money, NCAA, NIL. This is something new. And, obviously we all played in an era pre-NIL. And I think it has fundamentally changed a lot of things. And I think I'd love to get into somebody like yourself, Reggie, which we'll get into your background, but as a dual sport athlete, at Duke, what's your thoughts? I mean, obviously as former players, we all welcome, players getting paid, I imagine, but I'm curious what your overall thoughts are.
I think it's beneficial to allow the players that are producing a lot of value for those universities to participate in some of that value creation. I would say, look, I said this to Mark Emmert for years. I think you can give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
But you can't make him drink.
True. But my biggest point is that I've always said I've been a big proponent of lifetime learning, right? Like the fundamental principle of a student athlete is that you are going to play the sport in exchange for education. And I think when the NCAA did not act, when UNC had been sending these kids to non-classes, in my point of view, that's a breach of contract. Mm-hmm. And those are the types of things that make you not really believe in the system, because you get a kid, you get an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, $100,000, $50,000. He ain't got a bank account. He don't know how to file his taxes. Like, what have you really done? Now, and I do think the bigger piece of it is that what no one talks about is that, college coaches are at odds with college athletes and their academics. College coaches get paid to win games. They don't get paid for graduation rates. They don't get paid for how well Ryan did on his Monday fucking lab. Like, they get paid to win football games. And I think that there should be a window period where students can be allowed to learn and learn effectively while not also having to be at conflict with the coach who's trying to win games. And it used to be like summer was the time you used to get ahead. But now summer, man, it's warfare. It's like it's full train all year. There is no downtime. And so in my mind, the only way you have an ability to create a playing field where kids can actually take advantage of this value proposition is you got to give them time to effectively be a student after they've been an athlete. Like lifetime learning. You play 2 years, you play 3 years, you can come back and get your second undergraduate degree, get your graduate degree, and that shit costs the school nothing, man. It's just book cost to them, man. They ain't got to write another check. They ain't got to, spend.
Hold up. So what are you saying? Are you saying that you don't get paid till a certain time?
Saying that, when you're done playing, if you vested your time, right? Like if you play, I don't know what the cutout day should be, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Oh, I see.
You should be entitled to go back to the university and take a part of all the things you couldn't take a part of.
That's a great idea, Reggie. If I could go back and get a degree, like a postgraduate degree for free because I played, a certain number of years, I would jump all over that.
So is that instead of an NIL?
I think you should get both.
Both, yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say
I think to give somebody a couple of $1,000 today is great, but that doesn't get you there, you know?
They're getting a lot more than a couple thousand. I think what I realized was high level initially. I'm like, of course, we should definitely be getting paid. The universities are making billions of dollars, right? And it's like the athletes who drive that. I get it. And I'm so appreciative of my free Duke education. And I believed in that value proposition and still do, frankly. But it's like, man, it goes beyond the value that we're creating. And so like we need to be getting something. But I will say, I believe that high level and still do. But once I kind of started talking with folks, particularly at Duke, and understanding kind of the landscape around the country and how much these players are getting, even prior to coming, right? Like guys guaranteed to get $3 million over 4 years, right?
Well, I mean, look, I would. There's not a lot of compliance in that space right now, and I know there's a lot of talk. It's like, oh, she was a 10 and 11, and I spat. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on, and people are telling you how great it is, but when you look under the hood on some of this stuff, I don't think the numbers are actually as attractive.
Well, here I got a story for you that's under the hood, right? So, kid I'm talking about, right, Michigan. And I was telling him a story. This was just a few weeks ago. He was in town for his sister's wedding. And I was telling him a story about how I used to go to, when I was playing league, I would go to Walmart and sign autographs for an hour for $1,500, right? And he goes, $1,500? And I was like, I mean, it's the NFL. We made a lot of money. And he goes, that's nothing. I would never go. He goes, I would never waste an hour for that. And I was like,
did he give you a figure?
He did not give me a figure. He's a very humble, modest guy, but he was like, he spit on me, basically.
I know, a Duke guy, I won't mention names, but I know 6 figures, for something relatively similar, right, in terms of endorsement deal and things like that. And that just blew my mind to be a sophomore, a Duke or junior or whatever, to get that kind of bank. My concern goes to your point, financial management. Does that also come with resources around, how to manage that money and what?
Yeah, but you know what? Like that's I agree that that's an important part of it. But this is a capitalist society, and we make money, we get money. That's the way that works.
I just know that had any of us had $100,000 in the bank as sophomores playing football at Duke, I know myself personally, I can't imagine too much good in terms of how I would have behaved at that age and that, level of maturity that I lacked.
It would have been good. It wouldn't have been productive.
There you go. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up our hot topic segment. We appreciate you, Reggie. We're going to get into the fourth quarter, but we'll get into a little bit more of your background and learning who you are. So with that,
time now for the main event.
It's the fourth quarter. Here we are. Let's get into it. Ryan, I know you guys got some history, so why don't you give the proper introduction to this Duke legend?
I don't know. It's almost impossible to give a proper introduction. I'm going to do my best, though, because this guy's got a lot going on. So welcome, Reggie. This is Reggie Love. You guys met him in the last segment, but now we're actually going to get to know him a little bit. So Reggie and I went to school together. We were the same year. We came in at 2000, right? Did you come early, Reg?
Premature, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do that, but I just remember showing up on campus and someone pointed him out to me and goes, that guy, 3-star. I went, damn, 3-star? Maybe it was 4. I don't know. But I had never heard of a star. So I was like, oh, damn, that's impressive. Anyway, physical specimen, but that's not even close to what's impressive about him. So let's see. And correct me if I'm wrong, Reg. You graduated with 2 degrees or you almost had 2?
Public policy and political science. Yeah.
And political science, right. Okay. So he's I think we talked a minute ago about duality, right? So this is the king of duality. All right. We have 2 majors. We have 2 high-level sports. He played basketball and football at Duke. Probably could have ran track, I'm guessing, maybe archery. All right. He won an NCAA championship in 2001. That was our freshman year. That was exciting as hell. Burned lots of benches. He then went on and did some really boring stuff afterwards, like played in the NFL a little bit, had tried his hand there, and then he kind of met this guy, Barack, and became friendly with him, and then eventually worked in the White House as the presidential aide for 6-7 years. And then things really got boring because then he left and went to Wharton, UPenn, right? One of the maybe the best business school in the world, besides Duke, besides Fuqua.
Of course,
that's where I went. Yeah. So again, the Obama administration. Then he goes on and gets more education. And you just heard him talk about lifetime learning. That's absolutely Reggie Love. So Reggie has also got another interesting duality, which is that he's one of the smartest guys I know, and definitely the hardest partier I've ever met, which is a dichotomy that I can really appreciate because I couldn't do both. I had to choose one or the other. So I flip flop back and forth. But anyway, so that's Reggie Love. Mike, what do you think about that profile?
That is fucking
It's
impressive.
a sad thing because let me tell you, like I have like 4 beers now, and I'm like,
well, there's a new dichotomy, right? The early years and the later years.
The same. First of all, that's very, very impressive. And particularly on the duality of being able to party hard and study and do well, in class. That was something that I prided myself on. And then I started hearing stories about Reggie Love when I was on campus. I'm like, damn, that I gotta step my game up. But very, very impressive, man. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person or even prior to this conversation. So it's an honor because I heard a lot. I went to school with Demetrius and Phil, some of those guys you may have heard. Yeah, Coogee, Big Coogee. They pledged me, so I'm an Omega, and just hearing the legendary stories, I can't lie, not all positive, if you will. I heard something about UNC, but I'll maybe we'll get to that.
I don't even know what you could be talking about.
But I'd love to kind of start from the beginning, man. Like, this such an amazing story, right? And for guests that we have on the show, we might focus on a particular part of their life, but when your life, as far as I could tell, has been big D energy across the board, I'd love to just kind of maybe jump from the beginning or start personal. What do you think, Ryan? How do you want to start?
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to get Reggie's father's name.
Richard.
Interesting. Does anybody call him something else short, like Ricky?
I mean, look, the running joke is that everyone called my dad Big Dick Love.
Yeah, Big Dick Love.
Big Dick Love. Wow.
Now to the duality. So when I grew up, I used to drive 50 minutes across town to get to school. You had to leave by 6 o'clock. And, there were a couple nights where I was in high school and I would stay up until, 1, 2 in the morning. I'd wake up and I'd be like, Dad, I'm sick. I can't go to school today. And he's like, look, man, like, you want to party hard? You want to stay up till 2? Like, that's great. You can do it. But you get the fuck up and go to school in the morning. I don't care how sick you are, how tired you are.
And that must have carried through because I tell you what, he would show up every camp practice, right? Not having slept the night before, and then outperform everybody physically on the field.
Dang.
Every time. And it used to drive me crazy. What?
No, I mean,
I went to bed at 8:30.
And I never out bench pressed you. That's the one
thing. The
thing.
fact that you even have that conversation with a linebacker who has records at, you know what I mean? Like, look, Mike, Reggie Love at 6'4",
I was like,
25.
But you were 29 times?
What?
29 times?
35.
35, yeah, not even close. Come on.
But you did bench press 400 pounds.
True. 4 or
as
5.
A receiver.
4 or 5.
Yeah, 405. And squatted over 500 and had a 40-inch vertical and ran a 4.4 or something like crazy.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Hey, and the craziest thing was he could run for days. It was,
Oh, man.
Anyway, let's get into this personal stuff.
That's insane.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. And look, I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate, the love for Duke football. And I hope that we can bring on some viewers here and have a good conversation. And hopefully I'll be able to show this to my daughter.
Well, Reg, you're going to have to probably edit it to show it to your daughter.
Speaking of daughters, so you got kids, it sounds like? Married?
Got one. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us about your family.
Kat Conlon is the best partner anyone could ever have. She played ball at Trinity. Basketball. And the Navy is 16 months.
Wow.
Navy Elise Love, middle name after my grandmother. My grandmother was the first African-American woman to work for Social Security in the state of South Carolina. Post Jim Crow. She used to ride a segregated bus every day from Mount Pleasant to downtown Charleston. Single mom of 3 kids. And most importantly, my parents still together, Richard and Lynette. It's like my dad worked at this job for 47 years. He's been with my mom for 52.
That's big.
And I'm like, wow, that's real work.
Amen.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm curious, just real quick, in that time, right? So you were born and then you went to Duke. We know those two things for sure. Kind of in between, if you could tell us maybe, you know, some of those defining moments. I know you mentioned the story with your dad and like, you know, get up and go do what you got to do regardless of how you're feeling and partying. Just that kind of childhood, that upbringing, right? Because again, we kind of charted out all the accolades, and I'm always curious about the origin story. Like, how does the villain or the hero become who they are?
And I loved basketball growing up. One of my best friends, Andrew Moore, when we were 9 years old, we started playing together. When I was in 7th grade, everyone was trying out for their middle school team. I got cut from my JV middle school team, and I thought I was pretty good. I was playing on this travel team. The coach must be stupid. I'm at home, I'm crying. You know, my dad comes in and I'm like, he was like, what you crying for? And I was like, oh, they got me. I can't believe they got me. And he was like, yeah, you're not that good. He was like, you know, like most parents will like, they come and they
that sounds like my dad.
They're like, it was like, yeah, you're not that good. So you should go work on your game. I'll get you in this other league. And so I went and I played rec league my 7th grade year, and I still laugh about it because he laughs at me. He was like, remember when you were terrible and you were crying? You were like in the bathroom on the floor, like, oh.
I think I've seen that before, but like the 20-year-old version. What did you learn from that?
For me, the thing that I always tell everyone I talk to young people, I'm like, look, you know, you're going to get a couple shots. Everyone's not going to get the same amount of shots. Life isn't fair. And the only thing you can do is be prepared. Be prepared for your opportunity and know that you may only get one, you may only get two.
That's a good point. Like, what do they say? You never have to get ready if you stay ready.
Right.
I'm curious, Reggie, real quick, I didn't even realize this, but you went and played for the NFL or had a try. Like, tell us about that, right? Because, you know, I would have assumed maybe NBA was a thing.
Oh, man.
Duke basketball.
Let me tell you how uneducated I was about the game of football.
Okay.
Man, for all these years, I was like running around, catching passes, playing 80 snaps, like outside of the 7. I was like, this game is great. It's like, this game is amazing. Man, I played my first preseason game. I played 24 snaps against the Arizona Cardinals. The next day, I could not walk. I was like, oh, shit, people do this for a whole season?
Dude.
It's wild.
Yeah. And so you actually played as a receiver and had some time as outside backer, right?
Yeah.
Never heard that happen before. I mean, I could think of like Metcalf maybe who could probably do something like that today, but he doesn't do it is the point. You actually did it. What was that whole situation, or what was the, I mean, even the decision to try to go for the NFL, I guess you just saw that as maybe a better opportunity.
No, man, Bill Parcells called me, man. Bill Parcells called me. So I got released from the Packers. The day I got released from the Packers, Johnny Dawkins, who was the associate head coach, called me. He said, look, I just saw you got released. Why don't you come back and play another year of basketball? In my mind, I was like, oh, well, shit, football is over for me. This is it. I'm going to go play hoops, and I'm going to go get a job. The day after we lost to Michigan State, Bill Parcells called my cell phone. No clue how he gets my phone number. I think it's a joke. I think it's D. Scott calling me. And I'm like, come on, man. And look, the tuna calls you and says you think you'll be a good outside linebacker. How do you say no? I mean, it's like, you're like,
you don't. You show up and you get your teeth knocked in by tight ends. Fighting with tackles and tight ends at the line of scrimmage is a whole other game. I can't even imagine how you started to take that on. How did that go for you? I wasn't, you know, so if anybody doesn't know, I was playing for the Cowboys when Bill called Reggie.
I got stitches. I got stitches from Jason Witten in preseason.
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, like, think about that. He's never had to like wrestle with the big, strong dude, and all of a sudden he's in the NFL and he's going against NFL tight ends and tackles. Like, I mean, they rolled me up.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt.
I'd say the tight ends weren't as bad. It was the Tony blocks, man. The Tony blocks, man. You can't. And who knew those guys could build up that much speed and that much space?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that was one of my first rude awakenings in the league, was going up against that O-line and realizing that, oh shit, like I can't, my game in college was just lose my leverage, hit them in the chin, they fall down, I keep moving. I hit him in the chin in the league. I wasn't going anywhere. That's when I really started to have to work my hand movements and get off blocks. But it was like, this is different.
And were you going against Flozell?
Yeah, Flozell.
Oh,
Yeah.
So is Larry and Flozell on the same side, right? And Flozell, we called him Flozilla. He's 6'8", 360 pounds. Larry Allen's strongest man that's ever played. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the other thing, right, and that I personally can appreciate is that journey beyond sports, right? Because even for myself, right, having kind of gone, like I call tackling the tech, teaching myself how to code, starting a company, I'd love, and I heard your story. Obviously, I was at Duke when that historic day happened when Obama became president. I just remember these stories about, Reggie Love and, being on Air Force One and like not knowing you, but just knowing that you were a Duke legend at that point, and now the legend went up, having been with the president. I'm so curious, and I've been waiting for this to ask, like, if you could tell us about that, and really if you could just give me Obama's number, but we'll get to that later. Tell us about that experience, just how it all came together.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though, because a lot of people assume that like, oh, you must be from Chicago, your parents must be fundraisers. I moved after I left Dallas. They wanted me actually to go to NFL Europe. I was like, cannot do it, can't do it. And I was gonna go work at a bank, and I'd gotten a call from Pete Rouse, who was the chief of staff for Barack Obama in the Senate at the time. So he's the 99th ranked senator. I visit DC. I have a couple interviews, Pete Rouse, Robert Gibbs, Chris Liu, and then on the next day I meet Barack Obama, and he says to me, Pete says, "Do you want this job?" I was like, "What's the job?" He's like, "Staff assistant." I was like, "Well, how much is it?" And he was like, $26,000. And I was like, "Signing bonus?" He was like, "No." "Moving bonus?" He was like, "No." 5-year contract? He was like, "No." Come and go. And so I kind of, for me personally, what I had realized was that I got a great education and I got a great preparatory college education from Providence Day. And, my parents couldn't really afford to send me there, but, I was tall and I ran fast, so they figured it out. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing was that, everyone should have access to college prep education, whether or not they want to go to college, it's up to them. But the barrier shouldn't be, you got to be 6'4" and running 4.40, right? And so what I recognized when I went to visit in DC is that, if you have, Barack Obama was the only Black senator at the time, 100 senators representing all of the United States. At that point in time, population of the country was 18% African American. And the thing that I sort of said is that you can't truly have representative government if you don't have people who are from all parts and all walks of life helping to make policy, helping to solve challenges, helping to figure out how to make the world more equitable. And so because I didn't have student loans, thank God, Duke football, I had made a little bit of money playing football and I could afford to make $26,000. I felt like that was my opportunity to get back. And so on that journey, I started working in the mailroom. And so I helped them digitize the mail process, the first U.S. Senate office to have a digital mail process. So we could answer and respond to mail 5 times faster than what we had done historically. And then when Barack Obama decided to run for president, Pete Rouse, who had hired me, everyone kind of knew what they wanted to do, right? Like, it was weird for me because in sports, I always knew oh yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to be here. And when Barack Obama decided to run for president, everyone was like, I want to be speechwriter. I want to be Iowa State director. I want to be the political director. I want to go work in finance. And, I'd never worked on a presidential campaign. And I said to Pete, Pete, you tell me what you think I'll be good at. If I'm good enough, keep me. And if I'm not good, don't fire me. Just move me to another position. And he said, why don't you go on the road and take care of stuff? and look, and at that point in time, no one really thought that Barack Obama was going to be president of the United States. This is, January of 2006, 7, I'm sorry, and when it comes down to it, like, I think campaigning with Barack Obama had more similarities to Duke football than anything I probably have ever had, was because when you're campaigning, unlike a game, there's no outcome. There's no you won, you lost. You're just there. And you don't get true measurements. You get polls, right? They'll tell you what the polls say. Barack Obama worked every day. He worked every day, irrespective of what the poll number said, irrespective of the outcomes. He just showed up and he was like, I'm going to take my message to every part of Iowa, every part of New Hampshire, every part of Nevada, every person who can contribute economically to this race, which for me, I thought was amazing, but more importantly, because he thought it was an opportunity for him to do something that was bigger than himself, that he could make a play that was a team play that ultimately could change the course of the country.
I got to ask you a quick question, right? Like you said, nobody or most people didn't expect, Barack to become the president early on in that campaigning trail, right? I'm curious for you, kind of being on that journey with him, at what point, if it wasn't necessarily in the beginning, did you like really kind of look and say like, oh shit, like this could actually be happening? Was there a moment?
We were in Indianola in Iowa. It's right outside of Des Moines. They have this thing called Harkin Steak Fry every year. And before the Harkin Steak Fry, and Obama came to speak to people before he went in, he came to speak to volunteers. And in that rally, in that volunteer area outside of the steak fry, there were more people at this little volunteer rally get together than there were at the entire event. In Indianola, there are 2,500 people. They're all lighter than all of us. And I was like, they're here to see a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. I was like, this is real.
Yeah, wow. By the way, both that and how you compared the campaign trail to Duke football was really insightful for me. I didn't really think about it that way, but that was really interesting.
Well said.
So can you, I know we're short on time here and you got to go, but can you take us through like a typical day? And then can you also like indulge us some and just tell us something crazy, like maybe something that most people never get access to, maybe never hear stories about, like, I don't know, like being on Air Force One with slides on after you just visited Vatican City, right? Like something like that.
I mean, so typical day, I mean, obviously during the campaign, days are harder because you got less resources and you're trying to squeeze as much out as you can. So you're up at the gym at 6 for an hour every day. He's eating breakfast at 7:15, first event at 8. And basically did that every day until 10 o'clock at night. Unless you had to fly to your last destination, like maybe you did a rally at 8:39, it finished at 10. You got to fly west to get to Cali or get to another place. So maybe you get in at midnight or something. But there was nothing better than if you got to actually stay in the same hotel 2 nights in a row. 2 nights in a row in the same hotel was like bliss.
Damn.
And then, in the White House, I mean, there's so many resources, right? Like, you got Air Force One, you got Marine One. They're never delays, right? Like you're delaying everyone else, and the infrastructure is like it's a whole nother thing. I got a chance. I went to 70 countries with President Obama as president.
That's dope. Damn.
The thing that always struck me was that I think we've done a great job of making democracy accessible and making people feel like they're a part of it. And I do think that it's a big reminder that, our democracy doesn't work if we don't participate in it, right? And I think oftentimes we get frustrated, oh, it's so divisive, it's so hard, or why are the gas taxes so high, or we don't have early child care in every state, whatever it may be. It just reminds you that even when these things are tough, we've got to spend more time working on them because that's how this process works, and other places can't do it.
Yeah. No,
But what you said is important too. It's a process, right? Like, I mean, it's the democratic process. And I think that's important because, answers and outcomes don't happen. They are worked towards, right? They are built to, and there's really no end to any of it. So,
Right. We're just getting a little better every day, man. We got to get a little better every day.
And while I love that and it's super deep, I just gotta say, is there validity to this Air Force One slides reference that Ryan made? I mean, that would be gangster as hell.
I did wear flip flops one day on Air Force One and got yelled at.
Oh, is that against the Air Force One rules? No slides.
No one's ever tried to wear. No one thinks to wear flip flops or slides on Air Force One. They probably button everything up, But didn't Obama say to you, Reggie? I think you're the first person that's ever worn sandals on Air Force One.
Yeah, he did say that.
That's dope. That's dope, man. I appreciate your appeasing us on that, and I know I got to shout it out. If I'm not mistaken, you actually wrote a book.
Great book.
Where I think you go into, certain, details, right? So I certainly don't want to spoil it for our audience.
Yeah.
You sharing it. So I appreciate you. But if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I wrote a book,
Power Forward, yeah.
15 Power Forward, My Presidential Education. Really it's about the journey, what I learned. I think I had a lot of great people who were always patient and kind with me to give me their knowledge, right? And I just always, I think oftentimes as a young man, we're always taught next play. Yeah. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the time to reflect on what I had learned and how those things that I had learned had impacted me on the journey. So that, when other people, when they're thinking about what they want to do, or if they want to come work in politics, or they're thinking about their transition, that they may be able to take a pause and a breath and to say, okay, let me think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and where I want to be and how do I see myself getting there.
I tell you, I listened to it on audio and I thought it was excellent. Really, really, really good. And did you narrate it?
I read it. Yeah, I read it.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope. I ever said if I was gonna do that, I would love to narrate it because I think that's
3 days. 3 days of reading, man.
Well, let me ask you something real quick before we let you go. I know we spent a bit of time on kind of your journey, but we didn't really touch on kind of everything beyond that, right? And I'm curious if you want to share a little bit about what you're doing now, what you're passionate about. Would love to share with our audience kind of what you spend your time doing today outside of being probably a great husband and father.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I think the jury's out on all of those issues, so I gotta.
I tried.
Still proving guilty.
Obviously, if you can't tell, I'm passionate about, and I spend a lot of time on trying to make sure that we get good leadership into the political process. I spent a lot of time in this last cycle, and education still. I'm a board member of National Summer Learning Association, which they're really trying to squeeze down the access gap, right? And so if other people are doing educational stimulation in the summertime and you're not, then in theory, you're falling behind. And that's like a resource game. Everyone can't afford to send their kid to math camp or reading camp and yada, yada, yada. So trying to make sure that all communities, especially in underprivileged communities, that those kids have those resources so that they can compete academically throughout the year. And then I'm a senior advisor at Apollo Global Management. They're an asset management firm based in New York. A couple Duke people who are there. Board member Jim Zelter, you guys might know him. He's co-president. Jim Vanek, also, who's an MD, who's also Duke alum.
Nice.
We're the largest non-bank lender in the U.S. I work on our global policy team, so I spend a bunch of time trying to educate policymakers on the importance of private capital in the public sector.
Man, bro, this was
you know that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been an honor, and this was so good. We actually ran right past our 2-minute drill, which is with rapid fire questions at you. But I guess when you're winning like you do, Reggie, you don't need a 2-minute drill.
Just take a knee. We're just gonna take a knee.
Exactly, we're gonna take a knee.
Clock run out.
How about this instead? Why don't you leave us with a final thought, all right? And maybe to our audience of Duke alumni, students, and really fans across the globe. If you could just leave us with a final thought with all that wisdom and insight and experience from you, we'd love that.
I quote Coach K on this point, but I know that you guys learned this as Duke football players, which is that every play matters, no matter how small it is. When you were playing assignment football, when you were trying to execute a play, you gotta play the play. And sometimes we feel like it's too daunting, or we can't impact it, or what I do doesn't matter. But what we do matters, man. And I think we have to always take that into consideration, even if it's a small thing. Those little things matter. And if we all decide that we want to do something that matters, we can move a country, a community, a team forward in a way that's super powerful.
Good. Hey, Mike, I got to say that reminded me of the thing you always say, right? How you do, what was it?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Right. How you do.
I love that.
Smart Duke guys both think alike. How about that?
Yeah. Nah, man. Well, listen, folks, I think that's enough Big D energy for one day. Reggie, we really appreciate you joining us. We look forward to having, you and the rest of our audience along for this journey. On behalf of myself and Ryan and our entire Big D Energy team, we will see everybody next time. And it wouldn't be a proper show if we didn't holler these 4 words.
Go to hell, Carolina.
There you go.
I love it.
It's all over, just like that.